Hey scholars, welcome to chapter 18.4 where we're looking at the major indoor air pollution problems and where are they really faced in the developed countries or the developing nations, and we're going to take a look at some of those specifics of indoor air pollution problems. So the first one is that it is a serious problem. It is one of the most serious problems as far as human health, and it happens a lot in developing countries because of indoor burning and poor ventilation systems within those little homes or huts that the people in those developing nations live in. And obviously, the more poor you are, the less quality ventilation systems you have, and so those are suffering at the greatest risk. Although developed countries, though, indoor air pollution is greater than outdoor air pollution as well. And I know we're doing a lab this week on the indoor versus outdoor air pollutants and what types of particles are we seeing from those. But the book says indoor air pollution is greater. So I guess we'll confirm or negate those findings based on our lab. Why? Well, there's 11 of the common air pollutants that are higher inside than outside, as far as just sheer numbers of those air pollutants. They're also greater in vehicles, inside the vehicle's compartment rather than outside. And the health risk is magnified because we spend a majority of our time inside. It's not like back in the day when your mom told you go outside and play all the time and get you out of the house as much as possible. Now we spend 70–98% of our life indoors. So that is a problem as well. That's where those problems are magnified. So who are at greatest risk? Children under the age of 5, as well as the elderly, people who are already sick, pregnant women, people with respiratory disorders or heart problems like asthma with respiratory disorders, like I have, smokers who are already doing damage to their lungs and respiratory system, and also factory workers. Those are the people who are at greatest risk of indoor air pollution. So 4 most dangerous indoor air pollutants. Here's our major 4. The first one obviously is tobacco smoke. People who smoke indoors, which is why it's made illegal in the state of North Carolina in public places. Formaldehyde, which is a preservation chemical used in a lot of things, not only just furniture, pillows, things like that. Also radioactive radon or radon-222 gas, and very small particles. So the source of those are cigarettes, building materials for formaldehyde, underground rock deposits with the radioactive radon, and all those things can produce very small particles. Human health risks, breathing problems, cancers, and death are some of the health risks there. So other possible indoor air pollutants are pesticide residues, which we heard about from, I think, a last chapter. Some of you did pesticide residues on your PSA projects. Lead particles, living organisms, their excrement, that's the gross one, like dust mites and cockroaches pooing and you inhaling that in the atmosphere. Airborne spores of molds and mildews as well. Those can all have some really problems with it. And all those things contribute to what we call sick building syndrome, or it can be dizziness, headaches, coughing, sneezing, and just because you're staying inside long. That's also why in the springtime we see a lot of colds, or the wintertime colds being passed around because everyone's stuck indoors and everyone's going outside. Everyone's kind of stuck inside and easily transporting those bacteria and viruses around. I'm going to pause on this picture just for a second. You can pause me if you want and take a look at some of these important indoor air pollutants and where they're located as far as the threats and the sources. I'm not going to comment on all of them. There's some specifics that your book shows in your house where some of these indoor air pollutants could be located. So go ahead and pause me now if you need to. If not, we're going to move on to radioactive radon. Actually, before we do that, here's an image of a dust mite consuming a dust ball. And again, it could be excrementing out all these things and you inhaling and taking those particles. So here's our case study, and I have a sad story as well. Radioactive radon gas. The sources are underground deposits of minerals such as uranium, phosphate, and granite and shale, and those are isotopes of those. And so as they decay, they're producing and transforming into radioactive radon gas, which can cause damage as far as radiation to your lungs and cause lung cancer. To test for radon, it's about $20 to $100 for the testing kit. Correcting the radon problem is $800 to $2,500 because you literally have to go underneath your house and remove those isotopes, or at least create a pathway for them to escape without actually going into your house. The biggest problem people face are people with basements. Now, I know we don't have that much problem here in North Carolina because we do have slabs in our garages and things, which might be the other alternative there. But basements are the worst because they really have very poor ventilation. So you can see one open window, and a lot of times those windows stay closed because of the wintertime. So the basement is a very dangerous spot because if there's any cracks in the cement flooring or the cement slab, and there's in that soil underneath you, you have uranium-238, which then decays and comes out as radon-222 gas. It comes up into this very, very tight enclosed space. Well, if you have no ventilation, it just sits there. So every time you go to your basement, you're being exposed to radioactive radon-222. And unfortunately, I had a teacher back in the day that actually died early on because of lung cancer, and they finally figured out that it was because of radon gas living, kind of coming up through the cracks in her basement. So kind of a sad personal story on that one. The best thing you can do is test for it, and the second best thing you do is keep the windows open in your basement if you ever do move to a place where you actually have basements instead of Eastern North Carolina. So those are a few things. And also test, obviously, on a regular basis, and keep those ventilation open, at least circulate that gas, and maybe even fan it out of the basement as well. And that is that's the sad story on radon gas. So that's the gist of indoor air pollutants. Again, worse for people in developing nations because they have poor ventilation in their wood stoves and the burning in their homes, as well as it is pretty bad for developed nations as well. So we kind of share something in common on this one. We'll see you guys next time when we look at the health effects from all these air pollutants.